So, hey everybody, welcome back to the College Football Uncensored Podcast, brought to you by Saturday Down South. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with me, as always, my co-host and big-time winner over here.
Oh, don't start. We're all winners when we have the Lord.
It's been a fun week, man. Maybe not for SEC basketball fans.
What happened?
But some of these games have been awesome, man. We were just talking before we recorded about the Arizona game last night. It kept me up until, 12:30 because I had the team total for Arizona and I needed overtime to hit it. So, but it was great. It was a winner, and it's been exciting, man. How was your week?
It was good, man. I had a lot of fun. The Bama game pissed me off because it was like they were going to lose that game either way, but it's like, how many fucking torn ACLs do we have to have in the postseason? Like, you start the game with that. It was like, ugh. So that was frustrating. And then it was like, because that game was like everything you love if you love March Madness and you're a casual fan. Is everything you hate to see if you're a fan of one of the other teams playing. Just a fucking unconscious white kid. His name was Cormac.
As it would be.
As it would be. And Cormac went the fuck off. He hit like I think his regular season high or point total. I don't know how to even phrase this. I'm an idiot. Like the most points he scored in any regular season game all season. Regular season, right? Mm-hmm. 16. He had 18 in the first half. And then it was just whatever. But it was
29 total?
Yeah. Tyler, at one point he hit a three in the corner that was so fucking outrageous that I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done emotionally investing into this. I can't do this anymore. This is the worst. But it was still like it was a really frustrating season. But that game itself, like, because Bama lost so many games they should have won. That game itself, I didn't feel bad about because Notre Dame kind of hot, I guess, coming in, and you just hit you can't stop a kid that's like, it's like when they lost to A&M. It was like A&M shot 68% in the second half. This kid was like unconscious and like, so that didn't really bother me that much. It just kind of bums you out because now it's like softball season, I guess.
Hey, did you see Florida State beat that ass the other day?
No, Tyler, I was watching the NCAA men's basketball tournament, but
whatever. I know you saw it.
I did not. It was a Thursday night, right?
I don't know. They played Bama and came back and won in the last inning. No big deal or anything.
Sick, dude. Sick. We are now.
You will be happy to know that I was at a wedding on Friday.
Oh, I will not be happy to know that at all. No.
No. And before I even told the guy that I was a podcast host for the SEC, we're talking. He's a Georgia fan, and he admits to me before I even said anything. He goes, "You know what? Honestly, had they had their two receivers, they probably would have beat us." And I was like, "Sir."
Oh,
little tip of the cap there.
Now, I want to be clear that those are Tyler's words and Tyler's friends' words, not mine. So please stay out of my mentions. I said, honestly, the highlight
I'm
of
a podcast host. No big deal. I'll drop.
I thought you were gonna say he knew us. Yep. Yeah, he did not.
No, he didn't.
Fair enough. I will say the highlight of my weekend that I'm allowed to talk about on here is when I made that joke about Brian Harsin.
Oh yeah, that was
pretty
well.
Good. That was. So other than that, yeah. Other than that, pretty nice little.
What were your total impressions, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. He has like 1,600 likes or something. I didn't look into all that. Now that's not my job anymore. You know what? I'll tell you another thing I did. Since it's not my job to do social media anymore, I relaxed and enjoyed myself instead of stressing about having to do those matchup breakdowns because, know yourself, know your worth. There's that.
In your opinion, I guess we could probably take out the Kentucky losing to St. Peter's because that is just an all-time upset.
Okay, so Jack Mack, actually, from Unnecessary Roughness, our buddy from over at Barstool, he seems to think that this is possibly the biggest upset of all time. Just because the disparity, because I think Kentucky spends 12 times more on their basketball budget a year than St. Peter's does. And honestly, if you told me that, when I first read it, I was like, that can't be right. It's got to be way higher.
Right. Yeah, I think the 16 seed over Virginia, considering it was the first and only time that's ever happened, has got to be number one. But I mean, I guess if you're purely talking on investment into facilities and the program in general on a monetary basis, yeah, you'd have to think the spread between Kentucky and St. Peter's is probably the
What was the
the
spread?
most of all time. Not the spread. Well, the spread of the game was 18.5.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the spread and spending money between the two programs.
I mean, I stand by this part of it, and that is this is the most boring school I've ever researched ever in my life. When looking up their info, it was incredibly boring.
Well, they're like a tiny school in Jersey City.
I'm just saying it was boring as shit. That's all I'm saying. I mean, like there was nothing cool. Like they're the only D1s. They're 2 miles west of NYC. They won a national title in quotes by winning the 2017 CollegeInsider.com postseason tourney.
There you go.
2017, yeah.
A lot of returning talent, I'm sure, from the 17 team.
Sure, yeah. With COVID, everyone's allowed to stay for an extra 8 years. Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. And you hate it for Kentucky fans, but it was kind of like a glimpse or like some foreshadowing into what we ended up seeing all weekend because it was crazy.
Yeah, so they are what is this, the second straight year that a 15 seed has taken out a second ranked SEC? Because Florida didn't Oral Roberts, or I guess they wouldn't have been the two, but didn't
Oral Roberts took out.
They took out Florida, didn't they? But
Florida
I guess
wasn't
they
a
won
2 seed though, I don't think, right?
But they probably played them in the second round. But still,
but I knew it's I know you're only talking about like still the first round, but like you get to the second round. This is the 5th straight year because Baylor gets beat by North Carolina. Shout out to our buddy Adam Spencer who actually called that.
But like, the way that went down, did you watch it?
I know I did not. I heard like UNC
was up 25, and Baylor had basically came back and was leading at one point.
Well, how? What happened? They were leading?
Well, yeah, they were either tied or leading. I can't because they went to OT, I believe. I'm trying to remember this now.
No, they didn't go to OT. They won by like 7.
I think they went to OT though. I'm pretty sure they did. UNC came back, or Gonzaga came back all the way. Or sorry, Baylor.
They did not, yeah.
All the way back from 25 down. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the refs were like, a lot of people were talking about the refs were like very in favor of Baylor. They were just bad in general, and most college basketball refs are. I mean, it's pretty bad to watch college basketball, honestly, with the amount of fouls.
Okay, so and I don't want to bring this up about the Bama thing because that's not why Bama lost, but there were so many bad calls. Like it's basketball and softball, and I love watching college softball because it's so much fun. There's a lot of action, and it can be dominated by like one pitcher, right? But like so sometimes there's like low scoring games, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's not any sport I've ever watched besides college basketball and college softball where the umpires or whoever's in charge, like referees, whatever you want to call them, whoever's in charge gets more caught up in the moment and with their calls than these two sports. So I mean, the Women's College World Series is like there's balls in the other batter's box. Like, nope, not even close, guy. And this shit. Anyway.
No, but to me too, though, like they can control the whole game. There's no other sport like a ref in basketball like it can literally control a whole game. How many points are put on the board as long as people are hitting free throws. But man, this is what the NCAA gets when they employ people that they do it part time. This isn't a job, or it's a part time job for them. They have other jobs, and so. You can't be surprised that there's the game and how fast the game is these days. More than ever, that these guys just can't be right. So
yeah, I thought there was a couple of them that was like, okay, it seems like they're in position, but either way, like, admittedly, I don't know shit about basketball. Jeff texted me some shit in the beginning of the Bama game. Hold on, I'm gonna read it to you guys because it was so over my head, and it was like, hold on. It's worth it. I promise. It's probably not. We're talking about the Bama game, right? So Bama's losing early. He says, I can't, hold on. Clark and I, dang it, hold on.
This is riveting. I mean, honestly.
Sorry, guys. He said, UGA not being or Indy's white player is so intricate on the back cut ratio. It's not high enough for me. Regular rotation of 3 to 5 white players is killing Bama. And I was like, I don't know what any of that means. And he said they run a lot of 4-out Villanova kind of sets instead of Ivy League motion type stuff. And I was like, again, I don't know why you would have typed that out and assumed that clarified it for me.
So is Jeff a big basketball guy, or did he read an article and like is he trying to be a big basketball guy?
No, Jeff actually knows a lot about everything. It's obnoxious. Like watching the Olympics with him, it's fucking astounding. It's like, so actually, no, she's actually one of the top curlers in the world. And you're like, you don't know that? He's like, I 1,000% do. She's from East St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm like, oh my God. So also I gotta give one shout out. I know it's the women's tournament, which I'm not sure how many of our listeners have been paying attention to, but Oklahoma State's new head coach. I know he doesn't, I'm not sure if he even listens to the podcast, but a college teammate of mine, Daniel Heflin, is also a semifinalist to make it on The Bachelor. Very attractive young man. His wife, J.C. Hoyt or Heflin, I don't know, maybe they're engaged. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's his wife. J.C. Hoyt has now been named the new head coach of Oklahoma State basketball, which that's an awesome, huge. Anytime we want to go to games, I'll hit him up. We can go.
Nice.
Yeah. So
congrats.
Yeah.
That's cool. So obviously Kentucky loses, Alabama loses, LSU. Although even though they were 3.5 point favorite, I don't think it's
weird.
Huge shock that they lost. I mean, they didn't have their head coach. In the second round, Tennessee loses to the number 11 seed Michigan as a 7-point favorite. This was the Rick Barnes bet that we told everybody about. You can't bet on Rick Barnes in the tournament.
You made it past the first weekend once since 2008.
Yeah, and they played Longwood. It's real tough matchup there.
Yeah, well, Longwood's, I mean, they're not bad if you read the report, but
Miami blows out number 2 Auburn. So
now here's the deal. I was on fire with some bets this weekend. I thought I want to, before I start to be a fan, let me say to Auburn fans everywhere, I thought it was awesome watching Auburn fans, even on Saturday or Sunday. I thought it was awesome how much they showed out for Auburn basketball this year. And, you know, like, let's be clear, like the fans didn't want Harsin out. That was a situation with the boosters. But I thought it was great to see how supportive they were of basketball, how supportive they got of, like, you know, gymnastics, because it was like Suni Lee, all that kind of stuff. And really all season with this team, which, like, I think that any team with Bruce Pearl has the potential to do this. But really with like the personality on this, like they had on this team, with like Katie Johnson, and you have a guy like Jabari Smith, and you know, and a coach like Bruce Pearl in general, they had one of those kind of personalities that's similar to like an LSU 2019 football, right? Like where it's like they were hard not to pull for. I will also say their fans at times made it very difficult to pull for them because of how arrogant they became very early on. And then you see kind of how them, like they were stumbling towards the end. I still thought they were good enough, like in a setting like this, where it's just like win or go home. I thought they were good enough to rally, and they had enough talent and depth to win. So great season, bottom line.
Yep.
But it was fucking hilarious that they lost, and they got their ass beat, and the doors blown off, and had to leave Greenville. And even when they started the ACC chants, I was like, this is heaven. This is like, I missed out on this bet. I live bet it
out in the tournament now, I will say.
They are. But I mean, like, my God, it was like, everything went wrong for him. The moment Kessler had his second foul, things went south. But it was, I had some fun on Twitter. I'll say that.
I noticed.
Yeah.
So, you know, we move into the Sweet 16. Obviously Arkansas, who's had 2 close games, I would say. They beat Vermont by 4 or 5, 3 or 4.
That was
something
like
that.
In that game too, though.
Yeah, it was. And then they beat New Mexico State, who then lost their head coach to Mississippi State. So there's an SEC tie there. Their head coach goes, I do want to mention one more. It looks like South Carolina is targeting Chattanooga's coach, Lamont Paris.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we get into the hires that were made, and then we get our guests on, we got a Sweet 16 matchup. Gonzaga, number 1 overall seed. The Zags against Arkansas. Gonzaga, 9-point favorite. That game is being played in San Francisco, so may as well be a home court for Gonzaga, unless Arkansas fans travel, which I wouldn't doubt. Any thoughts on that game yet, or have we not dove in? Gut feeling?
I watched Gonzaga play a couple times this year. Obviously mostly against St. Mary's, St. Mary's, like we talked about before. But this is a team, and I understand this is it's different and how far December is from like where we are now. It's a team that Bama beat by almost double digits. Okay, like in Seattle. I just think that, like I said this a while ago, and I don't remember if it was with Adam Spencer or if it was with Connor on one of our YouTube videos, but it was the whole point of it I was trying to say was like, we talk about this every single year with Kentucky, how it's like they have this ability to kind of catch fire at the right time and get hot in like late February, early March, and then go through the tournament because of the talent. I really do think Arkansas is I don't know, like person for person, if they're as talented as Gonzaga, but I do think Eric Musselman will have them ready. And the way he played, the way he had them out there on like they played a horrible game offensively this past weekend, and they still looked fantastic. And still were able to win that game and pull away from that. Not fantastic, they only fantastic, but they were able to pull away and win. I don't think Gonzaga's tough. I just don't. I was really impressed with how they won on Saturday, or what it was, I guess it was Sunday. Like Timmy had. I'm so fucking tired of looking at that dude. He looks like every single cop from like a 1970s like buddy cop series ever. Just ever.
He looks exactly like the kid that he is on Gonzaga, but that like played in your rec league.
Yeah.
It's like just overly aggressive, but somehow is like, he looks like an oaf, but he's somehow like super athletic and is like dominating. Well, and you're just like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I just hate him.
Yeah. Well, he also like, because Gonzaga's reached that point to where it's like, it's not a fun story anymore. We want them to lose. Mm-hmm. And so, and
like, they still haven't won a championship yet, and we still feel that way.
Well, it's hard to win an NCAA championship. I'll say that in basketball. But like watching them and Timmy like kind of like rally, like, because they were down early. Like, I mean, they looked bad. Like, who were they playing again?
Gonzaga played.
It was on Sunday.
Memphis.
Right. And Memphis, by all means, like probably has, from a starting five standpoint, it's hard to say this because of Chet Holmgren, but you would think Memphis might have as much talent as Gonzaga, like on paper, at least from like a recruiting standpoint. I didn't think Gonzaga was that tough at times this year. They looked really tough and looked the part this weekend. I think that it's not going to matter where they're shooting. And the biggest thing is like, I don't know, like Adam Spencer was pretty clear about this, that Arkansas's big men are not going to go match up well with Timmy and Holmgren, but I still say they have the ultimate equalizer, which is JD Note. And if that kid can go off and get 30, he's going to keep you in every game that you play. So
I like it. Yeah. Well, before we move on, I'm going to have you guess the big upset in the next round.
Okay. Real quick, also the thing about the brackets, man, I think I'm like ranked 5.2 millionth. No big deal. There were 161 perfect brackets after Thursday, after day one. After Friday, so the first round, there were only 2. And by Saturday, there were 0, which is crazy. And for women, it was the same thing. After going into Saturday, there were 2, and then there were none after Creighton upset Iowa. So picking the one for the next round, you said?
Yeah, like I don't know if it's going to be a huge upset, but in my bracket at least, I have Houston beating Arizona, so that'd be a 5-1. Not a huge upset, but Arizona's, I mean, they're a talented squad. I mean, do you think St. Peter's can do it again?
No, I don't. I wish they would. Again, though, how about the fact this is the 5th straight year? The 5th straight year where you've had what do you call it? The defending national championship not make it to the Sweet 16, not make it out of the first weekend of play, which is crazy to me. So UCLA is a 2-point favorites. I don't know if that's that big of an upset. I don't think anyone's going to beat Kansas right yet. I'm going to say Arkansas, man, and I'm biased, but I've watched both these teams play for most of the year. 9 points, hammer the fuck out of that.
All right.
So there you go.
2 hires, and then we're going to get to our guests. UF hired 36-year-old former San Francisco head coach Todd Golden. I I know that he's a big analytics guy, and apparently he's an offensive guru. I did find it odd that he was there for 3 years and went 57-36. It's not exactly like that great, but yeah, I don't know. They did go 24-10 this year, made it to the tournament. This guy, I mean, obviously young. He's 36. Used to work at Auburn, actually, former director of basketball operations. So he's been in the SEC. His team lost to Murray State, and that was who LSU hired, was Mike McMahon, former Murray State head coach, 43 years old, 7 seasons at Murray State. He was the first coach in school history with 3 seasons of 25-plus wins, third coach in school history to have a 30-win season. Made it to the NCAA 3 times, went to the round of 32 twice, including one with John Morant, who's, the biggest thing in the NBA right now. So I think LSU fans, Scott Woodward going out, trying to make a big hire, seems like a pretty good hire. I know he seems to have a lot more accolades behind him than the Todd Golden hire, but I've also heard Golden is a sneaky good hire as well. So
I have nothing to say. Love it.
Speaking of Florida, Emory Jones back in the portal. So
yeah, they did start spring camp, which is cool. They also got I think either crystal ball or got a commitment. They may have gotten a commitment from a what do you call it? A 5-star number 2 cornerback in the country. And we also need to talk about the fact that Tennessee they got a commitment from a 5-star quarterback, and this is the kid that we heard rumors about with the $8 million NIL deal, right?
Nico.
Can you pronounce his name?
I call him Nico.
Okay, love that. I think this is huge, and like reading some Nico Iamaleava. I'm sorry I butchered your name. It was not on purpose, obviously. But this kid, he said for his commitment, it was decades in the making. Or for Tennessee, his commitment was decades in the making. He's the program's 4th highest rated commit ever. And I think this is a huge deal, strictly because of the fact that he said, of course, like the NIL stuff helps, right? Like $8 million is $8 million. Let's see here. Signing this is an announcement that Tennessee is relevant on the national stage. And I told you this before, like this is where they used to recruit. Like this used to be a hotbed for Tennessee. The teams who've signed a composite 5-star quarterback since 2010, Bama has had 5, Clemson 4, Ohio State 3, A&M 3, Georgia 2, Penn State. These are all teams that have competed in significant amounts of relevance. And there's more to it, especially, and we can kind of break some of that down later. But like the fact that he was very vocal about the fact that it wasn't just the money, and it was the fact that Josh Heupel and his offense are what directed him and convinced him to go to Knoxville, especially from that far away from home. That's huge. And the fact that he's able to do that after just a 7-6 year in year 1, even bigger. And I love it. I think it's great for Tennessee. And I think it says a lot about that program and where they're going to be very, very soon.
Yeah. Exciting stuff, man. Exciting stuff in Knoxville. Should we bring on our guests? Talk a little NFL?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about just the blunder that's been going on in Atlanta. And maybe it isn't a blunder. We're going to bring on Carlos Medina and our producer, Dan Matthews, both from 680 The Fan in Atlanta, right after the break.
All right, everybody, we're back with the Cat Man himself, Carlos Medina from 680 The Fan, and producer Dan.
Hi!
Producer Dan.
Fellas, what's going on tonight?
Let's see. We're now 8 hours away since we learned that Matt Ryan is no longer going to be an Atlanta Falcon. And so, as your audience continues to consume this, just kind of go, all right, we're now 12 hours, we're now 24 hours. But it's still going to shock you when we start getting down to the nuts and bolts of this thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's been a weird week in Atlanta. I mean, you talk about, we obviously we're kind of a regional show, but I think a majority of SEC fans, a lot of them root for the Braves, and maybe some root for the Falcons as well. So pretty relevant to the listeners. I mean, what a week. You got basically the 2 cornerstones of Atlanta for the last decade plus. I mean, Matt Ryan even longer, that are gone in a week. But
if Chick-fil-A would have packed up and left town, I would have killed myself. And that's just flat out.
Well, we don't advocate for that.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You never know.
Just a joke, guys.
As now you're having to add the disclaimer. I'm not actually looking to have to do this. It's unreal.
All right. Well, let's just start with the big news then today. I was not necessarily shocked that Matt Ryan got traded. Well, let's actually rewind a little bit with the Deshaun stuff. So it went down there because you had Kyle Pitts come out, basically hint that something major was about to happen. Then he deleted it. You had local people in Atlanta that are in sports start to hint about it on Twitter that Deshaun was a sure thing. And then all of a sudden now the Falcons are in real trouble here at the QB position. So what happened with that whole situation to your knowledge, Louis?
The timeline goes like this. So about a week and a half ago, the Atlanta Falcons negotiated a way to get the base salary dollars on Matt's contract down by giving him a bonus. This is when we call, he restructured the contract. Well, basically he was scheduled to make 16 million. Let's give you a check for 14. Let's spread out that number over the next couple of years. And that's how you get the cap down. That's how you play those games. They had gotten that thing done. And then they got a phone call that weekend from Deshaun Watson, his representation, about wanting to talk to Atlanta about playing. And so at that point, they didn't submit that paperwork to the league. They just said, we're going to sit on it and see what happens here. And I think that was a smart thing to do. If Deshaun Watson calls and he wants to play for your team, you got to take the shot. And so they did. We rode with it. And I'm fairly certain that Atlanta won this thing until last Friday. Because what happened with the Cleveland Browns is a very simple way to explain it for your audience. The most money that anyone has been guaranteed on an NFL contract is $150.7 million. For instance, you have Patrick Mahomes, who has a $300 million contract, but only $147 million is guaranteed. All right. So that's what it was. The Cleveland Browns took the previous record of $150.7 million and added 53% to it. They said 230 million guaranteed. This is what we're doing. And
80 million more.
80 million more dollars. No one's ever done that. And no one in the rest of the league went ahead and said they would do it. So that is how the Falcons went from probably first place to second place, in Cleveland, who was the first team that was removed from this, was removed from the equation and then got right back in. It's called the money whip. When I got to get your attention, I use the money whip for you to pay attention to me. And that's what they did. That's how they did it. It works on Lions and Tigers. It works on NFL quarterbacks too.
The thing that gets me is I mean, I guess Cleveland is so desperate at this point because how many years has it been that they go on and they draft these QBs and none of them ever work? But two, doesn't this piss off the rest of the league that someone gave this big of a guaranteed contract? Because now there's a precedent here.
Oh yeah, it's an incremental league typically. And what we've seen, remember when Matt Ryan got his initial contract, we all went, wow, $30 million contract. Oh my God. Well, now we're in a league with $40 million contracts. That's
the NBA stuff.
Yeah, it's the incremental move up. Well, the guaranteed dollars have incrementally moved up. Dak Prescott, I believe, got like 142, and then the next guy got 145, and then 150 is what we saw with Aaron Rodgers. They went way beyond it. And so you talk about setting that precedent. It's kind of legal in that way. If you say that quarterback should be guaranteed even 200 million, that's now a new level in the NFL. And it's a crazy thing that they did, but they took the shot. That's what they did.
Wow. All right. So then that leaves now, obviously during all that, this is a very public thing that is playing out with the Falcons and Deshaun Watson. Obviously then
for the Matt Ryan stuff.
Yeah, right. Perfect. Gives you perfect leverage when it doesn't work out for you. I guess, and Twitter is a very small fraction of the universe. We get that, but there's a lot of talk on Twitter about how.
Oh, Lois, what do we say about Twitter?
It's not a real place.
There you go.
They're like, look at what how the Braves handled Freeman, and look how this played out, and look how big of a kind of a laughing stock that the Falcons front office and Terry Fontenot are for letting this happen. Is your opinion that? Is it? Did they kind of make a fool of themselves?
No, and I will tell you this: if we were all in that same situation, and I told you that Deshaun Watson called with interest of playing with your team, if that ever got out that the Falcons decided no, I think they get more criticism for that. This was an opportunity for a 79-year-old owner. Remember, Arthur Blank is 79 years old. He wants to get this thing. There's a limited amount of time. There's a finite time here. He wants to get one of these things done, and Deshaun Watson accelerates all of it. It makes it more possible faster. If you're just talking about a regular quarterback, comes in the league and it might take him 5 to 6, 7 years to really get it to then play at a championship level. All right, now we've got a owner getting near 90. Like that's a serious deal. And so this was really about accelerating the situation. What happened with the Braves, completely different. And that is because Freddie Freeman's ownership on March 11th, a Friday night, went to Alex Anthopoulos. This was all done in the Buster Olney interview that you could find last week from ESPN as far as documenting the timeline. We had gotten word that the Dodgers were getting involved. Freddie Freeman's representation went to the best general manager in all of baseball and said, pay us on 5 years at this or 6 years at this, and you have 1 hour to do it. And the best GM in baseball said, no, you're not going to clown me that way. I am going to go find somebody else. And that's what he did. And so it's really two different complete scenarios. Mm-hmm. I think one where the Falcons did their due diligence and that was going to cost them, Matt Ryan. The Braves basically said, if you're going to put us this ultimatum where I might lose Olsen and Freddie, I got to take the sure thing. And that's Matt Olsen, because your agency is giving me ultimatums and that's not how I work.
And I think
by the way, he had better numbers than Freddie last year. Like, I mean, you just don't have the nostalgia effect of it. And like, which I understand, like everybody wants him to resign. I like what you said about it, like what Anthopoulos is trying to do and what he's been doing. Like, I mean, like, because of course we're going to kind of second guess anytime you lose a fan favorite. Like he is the most favorite, I guess, Braves player since Chipper, hands down.
Certainly.
Yeah, easily.
So like in the longevity he's had there, because there's and this is Atlanta sports in general, but there's so many of these like guys that are up for like 1 to 3 years that you love. Like, I mean, Frank Gore, his rookie year, Hayward, when he first got up, like things like that. But you look at a guy that made all of the right moves to get you your first title less than a calendar year ago. And when you kind of take a step back, it's not like, it doesn't seem as drastic and as bad. Like maybe this guy knows what he's doing.
Well, and you know, kind of like build off that point you just made there, Chris. I think that's exactly it. Is they have the built-in clout of winning the world titles. So of course, anything they do, it's going to be, all right, this guy built it. I mean, you know, it wasn't just the moves that he made to win that world title. It was the fact that every single guy that they got either right before or right at the deadline all factored in winning the world title for the Braves last year. So of course, there is that built-in trust. With the Falcons, it's been even before, during, and after with Thomas Dimitroff, it's been, you don't draft well, you don't build a roster very well, you get into situations like this, you overspend for people, and you find yourself being emotional, really. And I think that that's probably Los. I mean, back me up on this, or, you know, go against me on this, if you will. That people look at it with Deshaun Watson is they're like, okay, here's an owner getting emotional again. He's had the Falcon for life comments. He's had all these different types of things. And now he's completely just shoving his franchise quarterback aside to be able to go after a guy who may or may not be suspended for a good chunk of the season.
Right.
Well, I would point this out, and this is me I'm not trying to fence it here. I'm trying to be fair about this, because the golden years for the Atlanta Falcons have been under Arthur Blank and most notably Matt Ryan. This was a franchise that until 2008 and 2009 had never had back-to-back winning seasons in their history.
Crazy.
Which is just insane when you think about it. That was they came in the 60s. So this has been the best time for them. Now, there have been some issues where I think largely the pandemic and the drop in the salary cap, what it did, it happened at the worst time for the Falcons, because they had a mature team where they had guys that they were paying at the top of the salary cap. And once that number came down, it crushed them over 2 years, what they could add. And so when Thomas Dimitroff built the roster, it was with the intention of, well, we're always going to have about a $210, $220 million salary cap. And so we'll have room and we can add something. Oops, it went to 180. That's how we got into this bad situation. And so if you want to talk about moving forward, I think a lot of it comes down to Terry Fontenot and having to draft well and having to develop guys and having to find cheap talent. And that's going to start with 5 picks in the top 90. You've got 5 picks in the top 90 now. You need to come away with some players, some guys that are foundational pieces.
Were you shocked that Matt Ryan only got a 3rd round pick and that was it for Matt Ryan, or no?
No, I think it was a timing issue, Tyler. I think a lot of it came down to Washington had already had their guy. Seattle was fine with Locke. Denver was already taken care of. The last person really out there that was still searching was Indianapolis. And there was only one guy still available, and he wasn't going to be on the roster, and that was Matt Ryan. And so I think a lot of it came down to that player at number 82 should be a starter for your team. And whether that's going to be...
Has to be.
Yeah, it has to be. Whether that ends up being a receiver or a linebacker, whatever, you're going to get a 21-year-old who should be starting and playing for you for the next 5-6 years. And that's your payoff for Matt Ryan at 37 years old, going on 38 next year.
I don't know. I mean, maybe stop drafting guys from the Pac-12 or Mountain West. Maybe that
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could not be more of an anti-Pac-12 podcast.
Yeah.
But go on.
I mean, that's, you know, there's nothing that I love more than, you know, hey, we need defensive starters. Here, we're going to get a guy from Washington State. It's like, yeah, get a guy from the conference that is not known for physical football when you need physicality on your football team. That's probably a good idea.
It's an oversimplification, but if you're talking about trench warfare and in the trenches, nothing produces the best guys in the country than the Southeast. That's where you get it. Now, if you want to tell me go get a cornerback from Washington, we can make that argument. But if you're telling me I need the bullies up front, I'm getting them out of the Southeastern and the ACC.
Yeah.
But that's never been a thing the Falcons have done. I think that's one of the things that fans get so infuriated with, because if you take a step back and you look at it, and I don't know the actual numbers on it, and maybe they're not as skewed as you think they are. But like when you talk about like, me and Tyler joked about this a couple weeks ago, and they rarely draft Georgia players, it seems like, which seems kind of odd.
They signed Lorenzo Carter today, so watch it.
Got Low Carter.
Lorenzo Carter, 2013 graduate, huge pickup for them from Norcross High School. But the fact is that what I'm saying, like, we looked at a mock draft, and this is strictly a mock draft, but it was kind of like, a microcosm of like what the Falcons have done forever. And we were laughing about it because I thought before today they should have gone DB. Get another shutdown corner. If that's where you're already going, then go there and get a defensive back. Fine. This is also before any of this stuff happened with Calvin Ridley when we were reading this. And there's three DBs that are considered first round picks, right? Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, and the kid from Washington. And I remember looking at Tyler and I go, you take a guess at which one the Falcons are projected to take. And sure as shit, it's the kid from Washington. So do you think that something like that changes? And we could talk like draft strategy in general with the Falcons, but like you look at the quarterback class from this group, it's pretty bad. And so outside of Malik Willis, who is worth getting at that spot if you're the Falcons? And in general, what quarterbacks do you see going in the first round, like off the board after round one, I guess?
Well, let me start here, because last year, my frustration point with the Falcons, there was two things. The first one was that there is a dedication, and there's credit to Terry Fontenot for best player available. And even though tight end is not an impact position as far as if I've got the best one in the league in my Super Bowl contender, well, no, it's a nice thing to have. And when he goes for 1,000 yards, that's great to have. But it is not franchise changing as far as a left tackle, pass rusher, quarterback. This draft, I now find myself going, well, I'll take any of those. I was big on Trayvon Walker at 8. I don't think he's going to be there anymore. I talked about him 2 months ago when I started going through his tape. You could talk to me about Charles Cross, a left tackle over at Mississippi State. We can go there. But I am becoming around to, now that I've been more into the quarterbacks, I am more on the Malik Willis train than I was 48 hours ago, because I'd watched some games, but I hadn't studied anything. And now that I have, I'm like, okay, that's a local kid who's doing a lot of things space-wise that is now coming into the NFL. And I think Thomas Dimitroff, he was a guest of the station a couple of weeks ago. He said something really smart. He talked about Matt Ryan, but he says the league's changed. Now we're looking for these guys with movement skills because it's important to be able to create space. That's what he does, more so than anybody. Matt Corral might be a little bit of a cheaper option, maybe back into the first round. I think Kenny Pickett will find his way into the first round as well. But those are the only three as of right now that I feel very comfortable saying those are first round draft picks.
Yeah.
So let's just assume, because I think now the Falcons have probably the worst roster in the NFL, if not, bottom three. So let's assume they have the top pick next year. You've got a couple, in my opinion, game-changing players. Would you rather go a guy like Will Anderson, who could be a generational pass rusher? Or if you wait at QB, go, a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or something like that?
Okay, first off, I liked CJ Stroud a lot more. I'd have to get into that tape. Bryce Young is a hood ornament. Okay.
That is the end of our interview.
Now let me point this thing out. Let me tell you why. And Chris, you've seen enough of his games. He's a talented player. The deal is, if you want to tell me the difference, and it's a size issue. The reason why I like DJ Moore ahead of Calvin Ridley in that draft, and I had him as a higher rated guy. DJ Moore was doing it at 225. Calvin Ridley was 190. And so it just kind of restricted some of the stuff you felt comfortable doing with him. When you talk about a Malik Willis, he's doing it at like a 221, 222 size. He's a big, thick kid. Bryce is 190. That's 30 pounds different in the league. Yeah, it's a big change. And so as talented as I think he is, and I think he'll get bigger, 5'11", 190 scares me as far as playing with a bunch of big dudes. And so CJ Stroud's a little bit more, I would say a little bit more conventional if we start talking about these guys at the top.
I will also say the fact that on Twitter, I will never admit this, but I will say Bryce is a dude that his size and stature, every time he got hit, especially with knowing what we had on that offense or what that team was. I mean, that whole team, as you put it, was kind of a hood ornament in my opinion, because I don't think people really understood that, especially after the SC championship game, because it was like, okay, Bama just dominates this defense. We heard nothing, but great things about, and just Bama is back to being Bama like always. A week before, they went 4 overtimes against Auburn. right? Like, I mean, we saw them give up 7 sacks. We saw them should have lost to LSU multiple times, but that whole team was basically just the best player in the country on offense and the best player in the country on defense, and then whoever else was on the field. Every time Bryce gets hit, you worry about him getting injured because he's 6 feet, 190. Like you said, maybe he's 5'11", 190. I don't know. But like, yeah, man, at the next level, I knew Will Anderson didn't hit him in practice every day. And I know he goes up against the SEC, like D-line, stuff like that. But my God, like that's got to be a concern.
It's my primary. It's a size thing. That's all. And Will Anderson, I don't have any of these issues size-wise. If you told me that the Falcons came away.
Well, he doesn't play quarterback, Los.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is if I came away with a quarterback this draft, I know I'm not going to be good. I know I'm going to get probably 4 or 5 wins. I've got Marcus Mariota. It's a stopgap. I'm going to be in the Will Anderson sweepstakes. Okay. I'm going to be in it next year if I'm the Falcons.
I like them.
Yep.
So the plan could be to just go ahead and build around Malik.
That's the only one I'm comfortable with in this draft. That's the only one. If you told me that you end up, I don't want to spend a 2nd round pick on a quarterback or a 3rd round pick on a quarterback, probably going to end up having to do it anyway. I would prefer get the best player available at 8. That's what they do. And that might be Malik Willis. It might be Charles Cross. We'll see. It might be Kayvon Thibodeau. But that's the plan. Just get yourself 5 good players and let's go.
Yeah. Shame
don't
on
let it be Thibodeau.
Yeah,
he's not one of my favorites. I like Ojabo even better, but now with the torn Achilles, that's a concern for me. It goes. I even like Walker on par with Hutchinson. Okay, that's how much I'm a fan of that man's size and what he's able to do.
Yeah, shame on you guys though for not believing in Marcus Mariota. 3rd time's the charm here. All right, this is when he's going to finally bloom. This is gonna be his time.
No, you know what it does? It flashes me back to it. I'm going to training camp. It's 2007. I'm driving through PETA protesters, and I'm going to watch Joey Harrington play quarterback for the Falcons. Okay,
what a time to be alive.
Yeah, they said, let's go get the Oregon product to save us. I'm like, I flash back to that moment again. The Oregon product will save us.
There you go.
Yeah, it's about the same time too. Like because Harrington was done in 2001.
Yeah.
Good God. I can tell you right now, there's just nothing from the state of Oregon that ever lives up to the hype. And I just I'm a little bit biased, but I'll stand by that statement till the day I die. So
and you even got the great Bob Petrino leading the way at that time too.
It was a mess. It was a mess that year. Oh, they're so lucky they got Ryan the next year.
Yep. Quickly before we move on, I got to jump back to Freeman real quick because we didn't talk about it a lot last week. Dan, you're on the Braves organization quite a bit. What happened there? Because from the outside, and I will say I listened to the great interview that 680 got with Chipper. That was an incredible interview, by the way. I mean, it was at time you could tell how frustrated he was with the whole situation, but I felt like there was a lot of frustration with Freddie and more so his agent than anything. What happened with all that?
Well, I think kind of building off what Chipper said, I think that probably the number one thing you have to talk about is that it was going back to what Chipper said. If you want to play in Atlanta, then play in Atlanta. And he goes back to the contract offer that I guess he got last year during the season, 5 and 135, I think it was. And he turned it down. And it was, I think, more or less Chipper saying to him, that's not a way to show that you want to be here. Like, I get that if you want to say not quite where I want to be, but let's work on this and let's work towards something. And I agree with Chipper. I think that, what really started to fracture this was the fact that they knew that he was starting to dance with other people on the dance card. And when that happened, I think that Alex Anthopoulos and the organization said, hey, look, if we want to use the musical chairs analogy, I'm not going to be stuck not having a chair. I'm going to find a chair. And it's not going to be Anthony Rizzo. It's not going to be any of these other guys. It's going to be somebody that we can not only go after and that can, if the production drops off a little bit and all the advanced analytics, whatever, that's fine. But it's going to be somebody that's going to be one of the tops at their position and also controllable. Because if there's one thing we know that Alex Anthopoulos wants, he either wants short-term deals or he wants long-term controllable nature contracts with players who are even younger. And that's what they found in Matt Olson. And look, credit to the Braves for saying, hey, look, we're not going to wait on you. You have proven to us that you want the best of both worlds. And the problem is, I think we all know in life, when you try to play the best of both worlds, more often than not, it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out in your favor.
Well, this is still an issue of representation. And that's what it came down to, where Freddie obviously wanted to be here. He wanted a 6th year. That was important to him. He wasn't going to get it. And as Dan alludes to, they offered him 5 and 135. He didn't take it. Fine. They come out of the lockout situation. They offer him 5 and 140. And their entire thing is, get back to us. Let us know. Give us an answer on this. When Freddie Freeman and his agency issued the ultimatum to Alex Anthopoulos, they did not have another offer. There was not one from Toronto. Toronto kicked the tires. Tampa was talking about 5 and 140 the same way, and the Dodgers hadn't made an offer. So you gave an ultimatum to the best general manager in all of baseball that you're either going to lose this guy or you're going to be with Anthony Rizzo. And he said, no, I'm not. And so by the time that you now have Matt Olson into a 8-year deal with a 9-year option at $168 million, and Freddie ends up taking a 6-year deal for $140 million because the next $26 million is deferred. He took 6 and 140 with a deferment of another $26 million. He lost. He lost. That's bad representation.
Well, also explain this to people too, because like we know, and we've addressed this many times on this podcast. Some people that I live with have also addressed it while listening to the podcast. I'm not great with money, but when you talk about like the 5 for 150 versus the 6 for 162, right? Just getting an extra 12 million. Explain why that's so important that he could have gotten a 6-year, because baseball contracts are all guaranteed, correct?
They're all fully guaranteed. Yes.
Right. So if you get 162, I get that. But if you're talking about the difference between, and also like a follow-up to that, like, do you think any of this had to do with the fact that Freddie started reading like his own headlines? And like, I know that Twitter is, like we said earlier, not a real place, but at this point you have the entire city that's like, just re-sign him. Just re-sign him. This shouldn't be a big deal. And like everyone's team Freddie. Do you think any of that factored into why they didn't get him as well?
I think the analytics tells you that now that we're out of the steroid era, where guys are not 37 and hitting 40 home runs anymore, driving in 120 RBIs, guys now age like the rest of us. Okay.
Right.
Once you get outside of your prime, which typically in baseball is 28 to 32, you might be fortunate with a couple of years after that. Once you're past 35, everything starts to drop. And when you're being paid prime dollars to not be that prime player anymore, that's a factor in Atlanta or in Tampa or in several different places. Not in LA. They got plenty of money. They'll fix their problem. And so that's where Alex Anthopoulos was adamant about, I'm going to 5 years. You can play till 37, then we'll address it here. 38, that means I might be saddled with 2 years of bad baseball at 27 to 28 million per. Can't have it. Instead, I now have Matt Olson under control until 36 at 22 million. That was the math of it. That's what he did. And so that's, again, just talking about the money angle, he just did not want to be saddled with, when the normal aging process kicks in, with a $27 to $30 million player.
He's already wearing those long sleeves all the time, so he doesn't tan well at all.
This is my opinion on it, though. Like, I think that what Freddie, to your point, Chris, about the fans on Twitter and everything, resign Freddie. I think in his mind, kind of the best of both worlds is he thought, I can go dance with the Yankees, I can go dance with the Red Sox, I can go dance with the Dodgers, and eventually they're going to come back and they're going to swoop me up, because they're going to be like, we can't lose Freddie Freeman. If we do, we're going to have a mutiny on our hands. Well, Alex Anthopoulos said, not only am I not going to have a mutiny on my hands, I'll just go find a way to replace you. And that's how we're going to do it. If this is the game that you want to play, we don't have to get emotional. We don't have to get angry about it. I just need to do my job. And I need to be able to make sure that I put the best organization and the best team on the field to be able to get back to that ultimate goal. And that's what he did in going to get Matt Olson.
What'd you make of him being so emotional, Alex, when he was talking about it? I mean, clearly there was probably a major disagreement and he probably took offense to the ultimatum or whatever. But I mean, clearly there was some heartfelt behind that too. To me, that's what told the story about maybe there was a real problem with the agent more so than Freddie himself. I don't know. What do you think about the whole Anthopoulos reaction in that first presser?
So when you're Alex Anthopoulos and you get the first opportunity in Toronto and you take the shot, because that's what he did. He made a bunch of big deals and he took the shot and it didn't work out. And so then he gets kind of, ownership wants him to do some different things and he decides he doesn't. So he ends up in LA and he was there for a while before he comes to the Braves. The ultimate thing for anyone is being able to win a championship. Like, that shows I am a quality GM. I'm now a championship GM. And Freddie was a big part of that for him. Like, that validates his career. That validates everything about him moving forward. And so to have to move on from that guy because of circumstance, I firmly believe he was upset about it, because he can look at it and say, the reason why I got this thing done, the culmination of my career, was a big part because of number 5, and I have to move on from him. That makes you emotional. That sucks.
Well, I mean, and that's it. I mean, it's a guy that really, for the most part, had done everything right in this organization and was so well liked across the board, even to the fact where you've got players on the parade rally day who are dropping the mic saying re-sign Freddie. I mean, that just shows you just how these guys felt about him and just how much of a cornerstone he was to this organization. So yeah, there is some emotion there. I mean, you know, it's not only from him. I mean, you didn't see the tears from Brian Snitker, but when Zach Klein of WSB TV in Atlanta asked him about it, he was kind of caught off guard. Like, he was just like, well, we knew that this could be a possibility, but now we're kind of faced with it. And then, you know, that was the interesting thing of being down there last week too at spring training, was that being able to ask the guys, now that there's closure to this, like, is that like the completely like closed chapter of this book? And some of them said, yeah, it is. I mean, he's there now. We've got a good team here and we'll go about our business and we'll probably see him in October.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you still got to go out there and at some point cross over that fucking white line. And I mean, you got to, well, I don't know if you have 162 games to play still, but you have to like step in the box and you have to play baseball, right? Like, I mean, you got to move on. Like, trades happen, all that kind of stuff happens, but like, you are the defending World Series champions, and that's something the city has not been able to say in a very, very long time.
And let me point that out, because that was to the Buster Olney article. One executive said they can't go out there with Joey Bag of Donuts at first base. They're in the championship business, and so Olson projects to probably 40 and 110, 120. That's what it is. That's what he's supposed to be in this ballpark.
That is absurd.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get a couple predictions from you guys. Way early predictions. Let's start with the Falcons here. Where do they go in the draft? This is just, you know, I'm not going to hold you to these predictions here, but where do they go in the draft? What does their year look like next year? And where are they picking in the next draft?
Top 5 is where they're going to pick next year. Again, the reason why I point this out, and it's not because of just Matt Ryan being gone. Next year, for this upcoming season, you are going to play the AFC North and the NFC West. So you were going to see the best division in all the NFC along with your division. And now you're going to be playing an AFC North that, all right, they're going to have Pittsburgh and they're going to have Lamar, and you're going to have to deal with maybe Watson. We don't know. We'll see. That's a recipe for, oh my God, this is going to be a real tough one. And by the way, the Magic Vegan went back to Tampa. You got him twice in a row. Still got to deal with Jameis. I mean, this is going to be a tough one but the quarterback you're going to go with, or whoever you're going to play with, if it's Mariota. For me, I'm thinking I'm getting more on the left tackle, pass rusher, or Malik Willis train at quarterback, and have him take his year. The next year at 2023, you're going to have about $100 million in cap space. So put together a good core, get these young guys playing, get Pitts another year, get your quarterback of the future, and then load it up with some good veterans, and then let's go hunt.
I love it.
Go ahead. I got 2 for you as well.
All right, Dan, let me ask you this. How do you think the Braves do? I think their over-under is 91.5 in Vegas. Obviously, the East is kind of starting to stack a bit of talent. The Mets are basically willing to spend on whatever. You got some powerhouse teams.
Yeah, any of that shit. What happened there?
It's like in November. Yeah, basically, as soon as we hit the offseason, they're like, "You want to come here for a bunch of money? Let's do it."
Obviously,
he's breaking down. Don't worry, he's breaking down. It's gonna be fine.
I'm breaking down. I don't want to.
We're all breaking down.
Well,
Jock took him deep though. Yeah. So what do you think that happens for the Braves? To me, the way I look at it right now, lineup obviously set. I'm a little concerned about the starting pitching right now as it stands today.
Well, I mean, you got to find, spots 4 and 5 in the rotation, and who knows? I mean, maybe even 4 and 5 aren't even here yet, where, you might make a trade. You might have somebody who isn't going to fit somewhere else and fits in those spots here. We'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, I know that Kyle Muller looked pretty good yesterday. I know that Tuki Toussaint had his ups and downs. He's probably going to be a bullpen guy, but I think this Braves team, it's going to be a little bit different than what we saw last year, where this is a bullpen that believes now. And if you're able to get these starters with the DH and able to get them 5-6 innings, somewhere in that spot, you're going to have plenty of arms to come out of that bullpen if you are tied, or maybe even just trailing just a little bit with the lead to be able to close out some of those games and keep yourself in it. So that's going to be huge. The number I have for them is 94. I think that they do win 94 games, and I think they win the East again. And probably you're looking at them and the Dodgers being the two best teams in the National League this year. So, maybe we can buckle up and have another great run at the Dodgers in the NLCS. And have an NLCS that has been pretty awesome the last couple of years. Last year was even better. So this is a Braves team that's got a bright season ahead. We'll see how the back end of that rotation shakes out for them.
And also, so we brought you guys on here. We'll talk to you guys afterwards about, like, since you came on our podcast and we're giving you guys all this free promotion, like, if you want to throw us some free tickets, like, we'll talk about that afterwards, whatever.
Los is your guy. Los is your guy.
Yeah,
or even just lunch at El Felix up there. I don't really give a shit. I love tacos too, so it's fine.
Chuck is your guy for that.
Yeah, you don't want to eat with me. I'm the other crazy vegan around here.
We're going to lunch at some point, like very soon, as soon as I can get my shit together.
You're gonna enjoy some tofu, brother.
Oh God, I'm not, but it's fine. No, okay. So here's my question for you. This piggybacks off the Dodgers saying, settle an argument. The Dodgers are the Braves' rival.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
No, damn it.
No, and here's why. Because the Dodgers are basically, they're the advanced, like, if you were to fast forward the Braves 5 years, that's where the Braves are. The Dodgers have basically been in this contention business now for about 8 seasons, going on 9 seasons, where the window opened up for them and they got one title. And by the way, they got the bubble title. All right. They didn't get the real one.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
We'll go with that. Now the Braves, it opened up for them a little bit in 2018. Okay. It took you until year 4 and now you got yours. It took them until like year 7 or 8. So you're just a younger evolution of what the Dodgers are right now anyway. And when you play them in the past 2 NLCSs and it comes down to the run to the World Series goes through these 2 teams. Okay. That's a rival. That's back now to the 90s.
It's definitely like the main rival. Like, cause I just still consider like the Mets, the Phillies and all that kind of stuff. Like that's your rival.
Are you talking? So you're talking about in the division. I think
I'm just mean in general. Who is their main rival?
Well, I mean,
no, that changes. Like right now,
I was gonna say
the Dodgers. The Dodgers is the person that is they're your gatekeeper. I mean, for instance, we could say Georgia. Oh, well, I mean, their rival is like Florida. It's Auburn. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's Alabama. It was always going to have to be Alabama if they want to accomplish their goals. And that's what it's now changes. A win over, and Chris, you know this, a win in November over Auburn really shouldn't be that big a deal anymore. You're hunting for bigger things. And that's the thing, same thing. The Braves beating up and taking 3 out of 4 from the Mets should not be that big a deal anymore. It's got to be what happens in the playoffs versus the best teams in baseball, and that's the Dodgers.
Well, and to bring it all like full circle too, I mean, how crazy is it that both rises to championships for both the Braves and the Dogs last year were so similar? Because I think we can agree the Dodgers were kind of the Alabama to the Braves being Georgia. I mean, it was that, you can't beat them in the postseason, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, you're just not going to beat them. And then they finally did. Right. So I almost wonder too, if that's like, I guess time will tell with Georgia, if now that kind of shows them that whenever they see Alabama and Nick Saban on the other sideline, it's not going to be a, oh crap moment, that it's going to be a, hey, we're just as good as them. Maybe we're even better than those guys. And I almost wonder if those 6 games last year for the Braves against the Dodgers, even going out to LA, a place they don't do well, and at least taking one of those games and bringing it back to Truist Park for a chance to clinch it. Yeah. It was to them where they said, we're not afraid of these guys anymore. They've still got Kershaw. They've still got Walker Buehler and all those guys, but we've got the guys that we have. We can very much go toe to toe with these guys and beat them.
In my opinion, I think it's more of like that scene from Home Alone from the Georgia standpoint, where Kevin comes out from under the blankets. He's like, "Did you hear me? I'm not afraid anymore."
There you go.
Did you hear that? And then all of a sudden he sees that guy with the fucking snowshoes on and that giant whatever, like I don't know what, the giant pail and the shovel, and then he's like runs back in. That's basically Will Anderson's like, "No, I'm still fucking here." And I tell you what, I'm excited for it just to get the trash talk going. All I know is no matter what happens in that game, they better fucking pray there's not a single injured player out for that game or that gets injured in that game, because I'm going to be merciless and I can't wait. It's going to be great.
But this is the problem I have with Bryce Young as an NFL quarterback. Once he loses his top 2 guys, he can't win a game.
Not against the best defense in college football history. Yeah, that was tough. That was tough to do.
I mean, I think that was or Sunday afternoon against Jacksonville. I mean, you lose them, you can't win anybody. You can't beat anybody, right?
I don't know if that's entirely true, but we'll save that for another time because my blood pressure is getting raised, and we got to send this link to Dan.
Yeah, that old man made Kevin McAllister a criminal too. So
Yeah,
he did repay him later on, but that's the whole thing. I always loved it. He looks at the toothpaste. I'm a criminal.
There's so many flaws and holes in that movie. Don't even get me started on the second one. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is great. Or Tyler, do you have anything else?
No, I think if you guys you like the Braves and you want to hear a little bit about the Freeman thing, go check out the I think it's in podcast form now, right?
Hell
Dan?
yeah, it is. Yeah. The Chipper Jones interview, I'm assuming you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. Go check it out. I mean, Chipper is always a guy that shoots from the hip and says exactly what he believes. But in this one, I mean, if you're looking for any context to this situation, wow. I mean, like that's the only thing I can say. It's just wow. Go listen to it. Well worth your time.
And tell everyone where they can find you as well.
Los?
All you have to do if you want to always check us out on a regular basis, we're over on 680 The Fan. The cool part is you can always download the app if you want to hear more of my show. That's from 6 to 8 every evening, the Audio Fun Bag Podcast. And I've got a regional show that's going to be starting next month on the Southern Sports Today. Thank you. On the Southern Sports Today Radio Network. I'll be working with Dan on that one too. So that'll be a lot of fun. We'll be showing up all over the place, including Atlanta, Gainesville, Jacksonville. I don't know. We'll see who all wants to hear from Dan and I, but that's the plans moving forward. You can always check out us on the 680 The Fan app.
And also too, that because Southern Sports Today is part of the Chuck Oliver Show, or Chuck Oliver Show part of that. So you can download the Southern Sports Today app as well to hear Chuck, Los, me, all of us.
Love it.
Yeah, we're all black friends.
All right. Well, that's going to be our uncensored moment of the week. And we will get out of it. Thanks again for joining us, dudes. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys soon.